Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for watching us. Thank you for listening to all the missions of all the coaches, trainers, and consultants. I believe that together we can transform this world. All it takes is one person at a time. So thank you so much for being with us. Today is going to be about mindset in business. And we have a special guest, Angela James is with us today. Angela, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Diana, and thank you for being so grateful to be a part of this amazing project that you've taken on.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you so much. And I am honored to be here with you. Angela is a teacher and a storyteller. She has 40 years of experience in transformative adult learning, 15 years as an intuitive and spiritual counselor. She spent years studying and researching psychology, personal development, sustainable development, spirituality, and consciousness. She helps people discover their inner self and transform from the inside out. She helps people and organizations get aligned with their purpose and meaning. She knows how to create a space for people and businesses so they can start co-creating their new world. She's also the creator of the Choices board game, which is more than just a game. It is one which changes lives. Angela, welcome once again. Why and how did you start on this journey?
Okay, so my story and where my story started. As a little girl, I've always had a love of learning. I used to line my teddy bears and dolls up against the wall and play teacher with the blackboard. I used to love coloring in, reading stories, writing stories. And so what I'd like to offer those who are watching today is tip number one. If you're not sure of what your purpose is, go back to that authentic child who showed up in terms of the games that you played as a little girl or as a little boy, because that's where our authentic selves reside. And what's ended up happening is that we see how we have layered in what we are taught at school, what our parents and social norms have dictated to us as who we see ourselves to be. And in many cases, we lose our sense of who we are and our authentic selves because we're so focused on who the world wants us to be. So that was one thing for me is going back and venturing into who is that curious, interesting, wondrous, excited inner child, and what does she hold in terms of my truth? And then over many years, I'm going to cut the story short, but just really focus on the main influences. The next big influence for me was the Native American Indian cultures, where I started an absolute love affair with their teachings in the year 2000. And one of the things that they talk about is that the concept of the fact that we are all related and that every person has a part to play in what they refer to as the sacred hoop, which is planet Earth. And each person is embodied and imbued with gifts and talents that add to the sacredness of the sacred hoop and the healing of the planet. And, you know, we've never been at a more interesting time in our history as mankind, because for me, and being on purpose and living authentically today means that I can put my piece of who I am into creating a world that is a better world for the future 7 generations, which is a Hopi prophecy. So that's been a huge influence for me, together with Ubuntu, which is the African teachings of humanity. And Ubuntu simply put is, I am because of you. So for example, Diana, we wouldn't be able to do this interview if you wouldn't be doing this interview if it wasn't for me, and I wouldn't be doing this interview if it wasn't for you. So in this co-created space, together we come together in our own I amness, and we enjoy such an incredible experience across the miles using technology and being part of such an incredible project. So that was kind of on the spiritual side. So I also class myself as a spiritual entrepreneur. I focus a lot more on mentoring than on coaching, because mentoring for me is around gaining access to the elders' wisdom. So very much in terms of the indigenous models of the world, and their teaching philosophy is that the grandparents used to teach the children. And that's how through many centuries, many different cultures, through the oral tradition, that the spirituality and culture was imbued and embodied through generation after generation, century after century. So that's been a big influence, the oral storyteller as well. And when I talk about stories, I'm not talking about so much a brand story as I'm talking about proper narrative, fable. You know, many of our cultural, the values that are instilled in us, the consciousness that we embrace and connect, has been told through miracles, through fables. You know, Aesop's fable comes to mind. Many narratives that embody in them the values and consciousness that we need to seek for ourselves. So a large part of transformative learning, which has been a lot of my professional career, is around teaching people not what to think, but how to think. And if we look at the world today, we are training people still primarily for the industrial age. And the industrial age was a production line. You didn't want people to think. So we bred the ability of people being able to think out of their ability to actually engage in a world in a more meaningful way. So that's kind of been a lot of my journey and story, my own inner transformation, because you can't do this work without doing your own inside out work. And if anybody really wants to know what transformative learning is, it really is that inner focusing inwardly to move outwardly into being of service to the world with the gifts and talents that we have. So I hope that answers your question on a little bit about my story. I could probably tell you a whole lot more, but we don't really have time for more than that.
Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you so much. I am really touched and I am impressed by your story and by your mission. And this also makes me think about my own purpose, because it took me a while to really discover what I was meant to do. I used to be an auditor, and as you mentioned, I took a whole different path. I took the path that other people were asking from me. And I was struggling to always be the best, to prove that I can fit into certain environments, that I can be competent and prove that I am competent. And this really led me very far away from my true purpose and where my heart was. And I wanted to ask you, why do you think there are so many people out there who are misaligned, who don't really live their purpose in their jobs? They just take some jobs, they move forward in the hierarchy for the career, but they are not really living their true self. Why is it so difficult?
I think for me, there's a number of factors that come into play. I think first off for me is everybody wants to fit in somewhere. Everybody wants to know they belong in some form of space, whether that's in a marriage, a family, whether that's in an organization. It doesn't matter where. We have this intrinsic need as human beings to want to fit in. And so we start to place the importance of who we are based on what other people think of us. Our media is inundating people with, it's the right brand, it's the right look, it's the way you stay, the size of your house, the size of your car. Everything points to the external validation of who and how people measure success. And yet, and I know certainly for me, in terms of my own journey, the more I gave away myself to on the basis of what other people thought about me, the more I gave away myself. And it took a lot of long, hard work to get back to being part of who, you know, really living my truth and being my truth. And I think you've had a similar experience. You know, people take up careers because of, in some instances, because this is what their parents wanted for themselves, that their parents were never able to do. They do it to people please their parents, in the sense that, you know, and typically every family wants to have a lawyer, doctor, dentist, accountant. And so they let go of their authentic truth in terms of who they are around pleasing the external environment, the external world. And it takes a lot of courage to stand up to the social norms and the way in which people engage, to say, no, that's not my path, it's not my way. We then subject ourselves to judgments of others. We take on jobs that we're not connected to, as you've also mentioned as part of your story. We then try and, you know, keep on hammering this round peg into a square hole, wondering why we don't fit in. And then the resentment starts. And then we just start to lose more and more and more of who we really are. And life has a way of bringing us back to our truth anyway, because we will be confronted with challenges, tests that will test us to examine and re-examine ourselves and our truth. And it takes an immense amount of courage, because I think your next question would be, well, why are so few people doing it? You know, people talk about and in Freud's list of defense, not defense mechanisms, but the life events that are the most crucial or impactful on people's death. It's the death of a spouse, moving house. And in fact, I think one of them also rates talking publicly in public. And for me, I don't believe that that's the truth. I believe, for me, that one of the most difficult things for any person to do is to do that inside out work, because we have to face who we are. We need to face and take responsibility. And this is a choice. We need to face and take responsibility for the fact that we have let go of our authentic truth. We have made those choices to come in alignment with what we think our soul wants, and it's not the case. And so a lot of people find themselves in organizations where they are out of alignment with the values and the truth of who they are. They start to become, it's called cognitive dissonance from a psychological point of view, where they are so dissonant with what the corporate values are, this love of profit above all else kind of thing. And a lot of people are not that way inclined. And it really is around stepping into understanding what one's true, authentic purpose is and living that with integrity. And I know for you, Diana, to have made the choice and decision that you have and to do this work has been an enormous amount of courage to get you to where you are. So one thing before we kind of move on to the next question is, one of the most profound influences, there's been two major influences in my life that have led me to make the choices that I have made, and sometimes at great cost to myself and my family as well. And that is when I was in university and I was an undergraduate studying psychology, we had a lecturer and his name was Alan Zimbler, and he was teaching us about organization development. And he said to us, look to the right and look to the left. Going, yeah, one out of the three of us. And he said, no, because we would have finished the sentence with one out of the three of us would complete our degrees. And he said, no, he said, one out of the three of you are going to stretch people and the rest of you are going to shrink them. And that particular moment defined my entire career, because I chose there and then to be a person who is in the business of helping people stretch into their potential, to uncover and unpack their gifts and to offer those gifts into the world in service to those that they're called to serve. The second major big influence for me was, and again, this is a pivotal book. I mean, we see so much written on purpose. I think Rick Warren wrote a book. We talk about Simon Sinek and about his whole platform around why, finding your why. But the seminal work for me was Viktor Frankl's book on Man's Search for Meaning. And for those who don't know the book, he was interned in a concentration camp. And part of his study was, why did he see some people surviving the concentration camps and others not? I mean, that's a very short two-liner summary of the book. And what he wrote in that, and he became the father of logotherapy, was the fact that he saw that people who saw a purpose for their lives beyond their current reality were the ones who were able to sustain themselves through that particular time in their life and through that particular cycle of mankind's history. So that for me, those two influences, and the third thing was that I got into training and development right at the beginning of my career. I mean, I couldn't have been more blessed. Those three things really influenced me in terms of the direction that my life took. And so that's why I'm so passionate about being on purpose and about assisting and supporting people to find what it is that is at their inner core of who they are authentically and how they can offer that to the world. And if they're in business, to offer that to their subordinates or their employees. If they're starting up a business, to start up the business from that authentic core, because nobody else has their gifts and talents in a way that they can offer them into the world. Nobody has your particular gifts and talents, and for you to step into the way in which you're serving your world. And that's what really drives me in terms of both in the corporate world, assisting in terms of the alignment and connection and engagement of people through their culture and their values and through the leadership processes that they put in place. And in our personal lives, from a personal development point of view, to really discover who we are and what it is that we have to offer our world.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Angela. And I mentioned already, but I am truly grateful to have you here with me, because I am also learning. I am on this path of personal development for the last 6 years, and I know that is a growth that never stops. And this brings me to the next question. You mentioned Viktor Franklin, and this was also an inspiration from me. And indeed, the question for those who are starting the business, their own business as business owners, do you think there is a way for them to already feel fulfilled and feel content with who they are before they even start making money? Because I know that many business owners are starting on this path because they are dreaming about millions, because we think that if we achieve that thing is going to make us happy. Do you think there is a way to change that limiting belief, to change that mindset?
Absolutely. And I don't know if I'm allowed to do a plug here, but I run a workshop, and it's a 3-hour workshop called On Purpose. And what we do in that workshop is we go through, because I've told you already, I'm a spiritual entrepreneur. We work through the process of sacred geometry to actually uncover what that purpose and meaning is. And it's in 2 to 3 hours, we can actually uncover what that is. Sure, I mean, if people are wanting to take it deeper, then they can go into mentoring sessions from there. But it's a beautiful journey in terms of uncovering your truth, because it aligns from here, from spirit, into matter, into the earth. And we ground into, and if you hear little nails clipping on the floor, sorry, it's just my little puppy that is walking around. I hope it doesn't come through on the sound too much. But yeah, that's also part of my reality. So coming back to On Purpose, it's a beautiful process, and it really is gentle, and it really gets people to focus on what they have to offer the world, as only they can do it. We then go into narrative and storytelling as part of that, so they get to have focus on what their story is and what they want to leave as a legacy. And, you know, it's not about just being on the planet and existing. It's about what is the legacy that each of us is leaving behind and contributing to the new world as it births itself. I mean, again, we've never been in such interesting times where we can go into the co-creation of how we can birth our new world. And it's a very feminine energy that's coming through, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman. It's not about gender, it's about energy. The divine feminine is the birthing co-creator, and the masculine, the sacred masculine, is what gives it its action and its force and drive and power. So it's about bringing those two elements into balance. It's not about a gender war. It's not about either or. It's about both and. And we have to come to that both and within ourselves. And it's actually, it is fairly simple to do. Is it, when I say it's simple, the process is simple. Is that transformation easy? No, because we've actually got to come to terms with who we are. And so another big influence for me has been Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey. And that really is, we've got to go into our shadow. There's no shortcuts and no way through. There's no instant gratification, quick fix, as you've mentioned. I'm going to start a business and now I'm making €1 million. It doesn't work like that. And in fact, if that's the reason why you're starting a business, that's the wrong reason to start a business. Then you rather should stay in a job. Because if you're going to be starting a business or even working in a job, from how much money you can make, that's an external, not an internal. The money, the revenue, whatever it is that you choose to see as part of the rewards for what you do, very different when you look at it from a reward point of view rather than that's my why. The why should come from authenticity, being that authentic person that you can offer your gifts and talents to the world. I hope that answers that question.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you once again. And this brings me to the next question. I know that there are people out there who like risk, who want to be a business owner, but I also know there are others who are enjoying themselves being in an organization, being in a company which has values and contributing to the mission of that company or that organization. And the question would be, what can businesses, what can organizations do for people, for employees, to discover their inner self, to discover their purpose within the organization?
I think for me today, any learning strategy needs to encompass transformative learning. If an organization and if a CEO and his C-suite have anything to do with leading their teams and leading their people into this new confusing world. I mean, technology is changing things at such a rapid rate. 65% of the jobs that we that we don't even know yet, don't even exist, and want to, let me rephrase that. Where we are now, in 5 years' time, 65% of the jobs that we currently have are going to be redundant, if not more. So part of the responsibility of CEOs today for me and of their, I think certainly learning and development needs to be a major driver of any organization. It needs to be separate from, but yet linked to HR. It shouldn't be sitting in a transactional space. In fact, I think the other thing for me is that CEOs should have in their organizations a department of culture that honors and looks after the culture and holds people accountable to behaving in line with the corporate values. I think a lot of stuff gets lost between the C-suite in terms of their intentions and what then gets translated through the layers of management down to people on the factory, shop, or office floor. And for me, it's all around how do you engage people? If organizations and CEOs are not doing that today, they are completely and utterly, in my view, irresponsible. They may not like me saying that, but if you want to get the best out of people today, you need to be making sure that you're putting time, money, resources, and energy into giving them the opportunity to align who they are with what the corporate values are. And it goes from recruitment all the way through at every layer of the people engagement. I think the other thing for me is that we need to flip over the sustainable development model. And instead of having people, planet, prosperity, where you draw people at the top and planet and prosperity at the bottom, we need to be flipping that over. And that's essentially part of the work that we do here, is to go from people utilizing learning to be able to address planet and prosperity. I think we've got it the wrong way around. In my view, we are using the greening economy as just yet another way to, we're doing it without authenticity. We're moving into another way of just another way to make money. As opposed to the sustainability of the planet for the next generations. Many of us are not going to be here. What kind of world are we leaving for the people who we hold nearest and dearest to us, whether they, again, family members, friends, community members, people in our organizations that we're supposed to care for, when we are putting those things ahead of the people that work for us. So leadership, and I have some amazing colleagues who do some incredible work in that space. Leadership for me, if you're not creating an environment for authenticity, then you're failing. I mean, Brené Brown comes to mind with her Dare to Lead work. She is doing the most incredible work in daring and challenging CEOs to create environments of authenticity where people can be vulnerable. I mean, I would never claim to put myself anywhere near the kind of work that she's done. She rocks my socks. She's another person who's just incredible. And she's issued the challenge to CEOs, dare to lead, dare to step up and dare to be that person in the arena. And dare to rise above the noise, the mess. So, those are the things for me, and it really is a challenge. And if the CEO doesn't know his purpose, that's the place to start.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And from my own experience, I was fortunate enough to be in environments where this was actually in place, where the leadership and also it was going way beyond, were encouraging the personal development, and this was fully integrated within the organization. So I know fully what you're talking about. And I also know that I experienced myself when leading teams. I saw between those who were just doing their task because they had to do it, because they had to receive a salary, and those who were committed and motivated for that purpose. There is a huge difference. And this brings me to the next question. What do you think would be the impact for those organizations if people start behaving from their inner self, from their true self, if they start working with purpose?
I'm going to answer this question from a slightly different point of view because it's a really important question. We're sitting in South Africa at the moment. I don't even know what the youth unemployment rate is right now. We have an education system that's collapsing and imploding in on itself. It's all part of the change, and it's the old way isn't working, and that's the whole point. And when we start looking at our youth coming out of schools that are not working, they're ill prepared, it places an enormous burden and pressure on middle managers and supervisors to get performance out of people. Now, this is not a fault finding fact. I mean, I'm not pointing fingers and fault finding with anybody. It's part and parcel of the transition and the change that we are going through as a world. And for me, even going into schools, we should be working with purpose in schools, allowing children to pick their curricula based on what their purpose is, not on what their parents think. They should be not on what people think and perceive that the occupations are going to be that are going to pay the most money. It's not about that anymore. It's about how do we get these youngsters on purpose and allow them to expose them to learning that teaches them how to think, how to solve problems, because that's where their true value comes in. And then inculcate them into an organization where they are already coming in with knowing what their purpose is. They then also have the power to choose to go into an organization that is fit for their purpose, because that's what they are offering. You know, it's a two-way street. This is not just about I'm paying you money so you have to perform. It's also around inculcating a culture of value. I am bringing my whole self, authentic self, into the world of work. I have value to add, and there's a reciprocity that needs to be in place. And I believe that in terms of our leadership and management and supervisory roles and responsibilities, they are so overburdened with transactional stuff because the bottom layer of skills coming in can't cope with a lot of the things that need to happen. In South Africa, most of our learning is based on transactional learning. So it's teaching the waiter how to lay a table, how to greet a guest. It's about how to create a balance sheet. It's all about that kind of transactional learning with very little focus on transformational learning. It's labeled soft stuff or soft skills. In my opinion, it's not soft at all. In fact, it's through leadership, values, and culture that we actually get performance. So I believe we've got the whole thing. And certainly here, I mean, 99% of our learning is focused on transactional learning. And I don't believe that we can build a future when we're only focusing on one element. So for me, any learning and development specialist, any person who's in a role of developing and taking care of people needs to be not only focusing on their own inner selves, but also taking that inner self out and being of service to others, where they can discover what their truth and their authentic self is, so that they can be a part of serving the rest of the world. And however big that world is, it doesn't matter whether it's a tiny little world, just their family, or whether it's, and there's no judgment on how big the world is, because, you know, we look, and this is also, again, for me, one of the most iconic moments. I think back to somebody like Nelson Mandela. There was some teacher somewhere along his path who recognized what he had within him and encouraged him to do that inner work. And you never know whether you're coaching somebody who could be a future leader. You never know whether in running a workshop that you awaken somebody who then becomes the great leader of other people. We never, ever, ever know. And that's what's so humbling about the work that we do and bringing our best selves into what it is that we do. And that comes from us knowing our own authenticity as a professional working in this space. So it's not only over to the C-suite and to the CEOs and to all of those people. For me, it's a very strong partnering with learning and development, with the people side of it. People are not just an asset. People add value. They're not an asset. An asset is something that's on a balance sheet. People are human beings, and that they are the people who actually ultimately serve the customers and build the businesses. And it's about time we start right-sizing that through learning and development and employee engagement. It's not just let's do an employee engagement initiative and tick a box. It's truly with heart and soul. And it's building businesses with heart and soul that allow people to thrive.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Angela. And this also makes me think, I started this project barely 2 days ago. And it's like a miracle for me. What is happening out there? I attracted really the people who are alike like me, in the sense that the idea initially was to help other coaches and consultants, and I keep attracting people who propose themselves to help me. And I am like, how does it work? It's like a whole different, I don't know. It took a whole different direction, and I'm so grateful that I took this initiative and that I overcame my limiting beliefs and that I went beyond, as you mentioned, the money part and really going deep into what do I want to do with my life? How do I want to inspire the world? Because you never know where this brings. You never know who is going to be touched. So it's really a matter of going deep down inside yourself and really discovering what's there.
I can share an experience with you, which I mentioned before we went on air today. And that was, I ran it was a challenge for me. It was a 100-day challenge. And in fact, I did it in 60 days, where I was going to also be interviewing people on radio around conversations that matter. And these for me are conversations that matter. And the growth that I went through in those, it was 60 days that I did 114 interviews because I was on the morning show and the afternoon show. It was hectic. But the growth that I went through and the conviction that I got around what my purpose is, and you'll find that more and more as you go through your own journey. And again, you know, people are jumping in to get on board to help you because your intention is honorable and it's authentic. And that's what you're drawing to you, is you're drawing other people who are authentic because you're living from purpose. That's how it works. When we declare our purpose to the world and we authentically live our truth, and we've gone through the shadow work that we need to clear away, not just limiting beliefs, but all sorts of old gunk that we've picked up in our journeys. That's when the universe starts to respond to us and bring to us that which we have called. And you know, 1 million interviews is really ambitious. And when I say that, I'm not saying that to dampen your enthusiasm, but you're going to need people to help you with this because it's massive. And I mean, I know just after 60 days how tired I was after putting all that energy in. So I'm certainly putting my hand up to see how I can help and be of service to you and to carrying this message, because it's a powerful message and it's a message that needs to get out to the world. And I think the thing for me that's also so incredible, Diana, it's not, you know, there's been a lot of stuff that's happening in the L&D space and in the transformation space where it's all about the money and how deep we can dig people into sales funnels and la 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 and all of that stuff. It's not about that, actually. It's about living our purpose and being on purpose, being of service. The rewards from the universe will come in the form and shape that we have no idea, because the plan that certainly for me, the plan that our higher power has for me, for us who are doing this kind of work, is far more interesting and probably far more powerful than we ever give it credit for. And that for me as well, you know, when we're working with authenticity, there's an alignment to the world of spirit. It's a spiritual calling. You are living your calling. You're not just being, that's what it means to actually be on purpose, is to live our calling. Because for me, the calling comes from a higher power who I choose to call God, universe, cosmic consciousness, doesn't matter what we label it or call it. And it's about bringing that in and grounding it into matter. And so that's why you're attracting who you are attracting, and you're going to be attracting many, many more. And one of the things that I can also say to you is be careful and really screen who you're wanting to bring through properly, that they're not jumping on the bus just for their own self-satisfaction and their own gratification. That it is people of aligned heart and matter that come into, an aligned spirit that come into this space, because it is a sacred space you're creating. And that's where you're going to find your boundaries are going to be pushed by people who just want to be a part of this because of what they can take, not what they can give.
Absolutely, absolutely. And these are very good advices, and definitely I need to think it through and to really make it a real thing. Right now, you are one of our founding members for this project, so thank you so much. I would like to close the interview today. Thank you for being with us, and I am grateful for everything I learned from you and for all your support. I would like to ask you, how can people contact you if they want to get in touch and get into your programs?
Okay, so my telephone number is +27 82 566 4236. My Facebook page is it's Angela James, but you can, if you type in the word Dreamweave, you'll see me with my funny little glasses on. You'll see me there. I know that you're going to post social links as well. We're in the process of, I'm going through my own transformation at the moment because I'm putting the businesses into a certain space that I'm going out as myself, which is quite challenging for me to step into that space. So we will be having a website up shortly and it'll be www.angelajames.co.za. So that's www.angelajames.co.za. At the moment, and there is a link that I've given you because I also do spiritual psychic readings for people as well, to the one-to-one coaching, then you can get hold of me via a landing page called bit.ly. It's bit.ly AJSP readings. So I'll spell that out for you. www. No, sorry, not. I'm going to have to, you'll have to edit that out. It's bit.ly, bit.ly / capital A, capital J, capital S, small p, capital R, EADING. So yeah, what I wanted to say to you, Diana, also is we have a women's group called Rise, and that's dealing with the divine feminine and allowing women to step into their authentic space as well. And around that, we also do some healing work for women, particularly at the moment. We will move into the men's space as well, but we're doing work around offering healing circles for women to be able to dialogue and talk about where they are and deal with the trauma that they may have gone through. And as a side note, trauma for me is any situation, relationship where you're not able to be authentic. And the world is in trauma. COVID became a trauma. And yet it's the most incredible time, because the messy part of the butterfly becoming the butterfly is actually the messy part of the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. So we're in the messy and we're about to birth the new world. And I'd like to thank you again for just the absolute honor of being able to be a part of this initiative, and to be in kind of like your teething stages. And I would like to offer you my support, that if you're needing any help, you need to talk anything through, just pick up the phone. We'll be on WhatsApp and I can help you and possibly support you, guiding you through. So I'd like to offer that to you while you embark on this incredibly brave and very powerful journey.
Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you so much. And for all those listening to us, go and book your call with Angela. Go and visit her pages, see how she can support you, because she is there for us. She is there to help you discover your inner self. And there is nothing more powerful than when you live your true purpose. You feel the content and the fulfillment, no matter what is happening around you. And this is when the true magic is happening. Thank you so much for being with us. Stay connected for the next episodes, and I will see you soon.